And welcome everyone to our mini masterpieces winter evergreens painting. This is the first time offering this painting. It's a new one. If you miss it and want to catch it live again, Warminster Library will be featuring this on Monday. If you don't subscribe to my newsletter, it's in the newsletter that comes out on Monday, but you can catch it in there, or you can sign up for it on the Warminster Library website. Um, and I will have my email at the end of this in the chat if you're interested in signing up for the newsletter, or if you're interested in getting in touch with Warminster Library and you're not sure how to do so. Okay, so we are going to get started here. I also want to make sure that you can see this large. You want to make sure that you are not on gallery view, but you are on speaker view. And I guess I should introduce myself for those that don't know me. My name is Anita Thompson, and I'm a teaching artist in Bucks County. And I teach at probably about, at this point, about 13 different libraries. Um, and so most of them are virtual, the adult ones. So, and you can join all of them if you're interested. You don't have to be a patron of certain libraries, although in order to get the art kits that they give out, you do have to be a patron of that library. But the supplies are always included. The supply list is always included for you to purchase on your own. Okay, so it's a very simple drawing. We do everything with paint in this one. So, and it's kind of appropriate for this evening, being that it's snowing tonight. I don't think we're getting a whole lot, but as Debbie said, I think the visibility factor is really a little bit harder. So we're going to draw our evergreens. I'm going to scooch in here so that you're able to see it even more. There we go. Okay, so starting off, we're really just going to be drawing the twigs, and then we're doing everything by paint. So the first thing we're going to be doing is we're going to be drawing in where our branches are going. So I have about 3 or 4, well, actually like 2 main branches, and then we have some offshoots. You are welcome to add more, um, but I'll show you how I'm doing mine. So we're starting off on the left side of the painting, and we're going to be swooping across with this first branch. So we're going to you can sort of make it a single line at first so you can tell where you're going. So we're going to go up towards the right corner. I'm going to make that a little darker so you can see it. And then once you have a single line, you're obviously going to be doubling that up. Now, you don't want to make a complete straight line. You kind of want it to be bumpy so that it looks like a branch. And then from that, you're going to make one more branch that's visible. That's sort of an offshoot of that main one. Now, if you notice, I'm just making branches, as I mentioned, or actually the twigs. We will make offshoots of the other parts that the evergreens are coming out of. I just want to make sure everybody is catching up here. It's so good to see everybody. Sue, Anna, and Arena. I'm not sure who owner is, but I like that you have that as a name. Rosetta, Pam, Carol, and Kim. Okay, so continuing on here, we're now just going to swoop over, doing the same thing with the other branch now. So starting over on the left, we're going to come down across And then we're going to make it double it up here. And then we're going to have another offshoot of that branch, like so. Okay. And then we're going to start having, a few more here. So we've drawn the main ones here and here, but we have one happening over here as well. So if I could take your attention over to this branch, and we're going to add one over here. Okay, and with that, we are finished with the drawing portion for right now. We will be adding some more with our paintbrush. But first, we're going to start on the background. So our background is going to be blue. But as you can see, there are different colors of blue in this, but we're just using the one blue. What we're doing is we're going to paint it blue first, and then we're going to add some dark blue in these corners by mixing together blue and black in order to get a dark blue. And then we're going to be adding some white to the blue so we get some lighter blue. And then we're going to be adding, again, with these same colors, blue and black, and then a little bit of white, which is going to give us a grayish blue, sort of a slate blue. But our first step is to paint the background blue. So let's do that. So here is my paint palette here, a paper plate. And if anyone is new to acrylic, we use water to wash our brushes and also to wet our brush. At this point, you might want to go and use both brushes, starting off first with the flat brush being that the bristles come to sort of a flat, they're flat rather than coming to a point. This is your round brush, which comes to a point. But you can use both, but I like to start off with my flat brush. So I wet my brush a little bit, and then I'm going to dip into my blue. And I'm just going to paint around the branches. So this is our first base color. So we want to just paint. Let me move my camera here, or my light. So we're going to paint around these twigs using this blue. And then we'll be going back and be adding the different shades of blue. To the different sections. I always love when, well, this has happened a few times now, when a librarian picks a painting or drawing and it just so happens that the weather is doing the same thing. I think that's great. I mean, not that Chrissy knew, but it's a nice happenstance. So don't worry too much about that. We didn't have the branches come to a point or anything, because we will deal with that as we are painting. And just take your time as we lay in the background color. And as I mentioned, you might want to switch to your round brush as we are getting closer to the individual twigs. kind of like in these spaces right here. But I tend to just continue to use my flat brush. I may go back and grab my round brush for some of the really tiny points. I also tend to paint the bigger parts first and then go back into the detail areas. So your little canvas should be looking rather blue at this point. I'm going to switch to my round brush here. And paint in closer to detailed parts. Thank you for joining me tonight. It's a nice evening to be inside painting, doing any kind of inside stuff. Though I must admit, I like taking walks when it's snowing as well. Although tonight I feel like it's more icy rather than snowy. So I'm not sure that a later walk is in the cards. But sometimes it can feel refreshing, at least to me. I know cold weather is not for most people. And again, just take your time around those tricky areas. You want to make sure to get the background covered as much as possible because it's easier to do it now than, when we start to do the details. It's not impossible, but it's just easier to do it at this stage. But it can be done later on if we must. Now I'm just making sure that some of those finer parts in between are covered. Before we start with our blending. Okay. So our next step is now going to be to start blending in some of these blues. And I'm going to show you my palette here. And so what we're going to do is we're going to mix a few colors, but we'll start off first with making it a little bit darker. So we're going to be mixing some blue and some black, and you're going to get a dark blue. That's going to go in the corners and sort of be blended into the top middle area of the painting, but you'll see. Okay. And either brush will work for this, since this is a tiny painting, um, I go in between both of my brushes, especially, just like we did now, around the parts that are a little more intricate. So, but I'm gonna stay with my round brush for now. I'm just gonna put my other brush in the water for now. And I'm gonna start off at the top of the painting. And it's a little too dark for me, so I'm gonna keep going back and adding in a little bit of blue. But as you can see, it's a nice dark blue. And I'm going to extend that all the way across the top part of the painting. And so we're going to add this blue throughout a lot of the painting. It's going to be down here, pretty much covering different parts sporadically before we start adding in the lighter colors. So as you can see, what I'm doing is I'm adding this dark blue. I'm going to go around the entire painting, but I'm leaving the regular blue sort of around the branch areas, like directly around the branch areas. Just take your time. I know I go a little fast with this part, but I'm going to give you a chance to catch up. I just want you to see kind of what I'm doing here with the dark blue. So I'm kind of going around the edges of the painting. I need to get a different brush. Excuse me while I do that. This one's not holding up the same way I wanted it to. Okay, I found a better one. Much better. Okay. So you're going to start to blend that color in with the blue. And so as you are brushing it across your canvas, you want to brush it into your regular blue that we started off with. But then we're now going to start adding some white to this color. So remember I mentioned we're going to be adding white to this color so that we get like a slate blue or like a gray. And then we're going to add blue and white together as a separate color so that it is just a lighter blue. So here's the color that you should, something similar to this color right here. See how it's kind of a grayish blue? I just took white and I went right on top of this color, blended it right in. Now I'm mixing it. And we're going to add dabs of it. And the reason for this is we kind of want a little bit of a nighttime, sort of a nighttime feel. And so if you see that, what I've done is I'm kind of going on top of both colors, but adding to all the different, or the two different blues that we already have. And I'm kind of tapping it on. And I'm going to go a little closer now so you can see. See, I'm kind of tapping it on. Let's see if I can give you some more light here. Like so. I gotta mix a little more. I'm tapping it on throughout. I want to keep in the corners the darker color. So I'm not going to touch that with this blue, but I'm going to just tap it on to the other areas and sort of blend by kind of tapping it and kind of painting it a little bit across. And then we're going to get really light in some areas. And again, we're trying to achieve a nighttime feel, and then, you know, like the sky in a nighttime, or I should say, sort of in a snowy evening, much like tonight. So you can see, or should be able to see, that the color is changing. Have to add a little more here. Now you can even go a little bit lighter with this color and add a little more white, and you will get another blue, which is nice. I've kind of done this in this area right here. So again, if you add a little more white, you're going to get another level of blue. And at any time, if you want something a little darker, you can just go back and add it in. Sometimes I tend to get a little bit light or too light in all areas, and I want to, you know, darken it up. I like to go back in, and we're going to add some more black in between the branches before we start using the, or I should say, before we start painting the greenery. So if I wanted to do that, I have the blue, this blue color on my brush, and I'm just going to go back in now. And I'm going to just add some dark into the sort of areas that are making a V. I'm just going to add a little more black. And again, I'm going to go back and forth using both brushes, especially in these areas. Because you want to get to as close as possible to your twigs so that the background is obviously looking more blended together. And then I'm blending a little bit with my brush by kind of smoothing the surface across. Again, I just wanted to add a little bit more dark right around the areas of the branches. And then I sometimes like to go back, which is what I'm doing now, again with the black after we've added all this, and just adding a little bit of some black mixed in with the tiniest bit of blue to make it a little darker. It's almost like I'm tracing around the branches, but we wanted to get those base colors on first. And I'm even going to add a little more regular blue back into the mix. So it's sort of this delicate play of kind of the medium blue, and then we add really a few different versions of blue just by adding a little more white. We haven't added the lightest blue yet. We just want to make sure that we're getting a full range of blues here, and that's really just by adding black, a little bit more black, a little bit more blue. And if you noticed, I haven't rinsed my brush. I'm just adding those colors, and I'm getting this varied look, which is lovely. And you want to do this when the paint, while the paint is wet. Especially your darker colors, the black and, that bluish black. You want to make sure that's wet when you start to paint in a little more of the blue so that it blends. So now I'm just kind of touching up some of those areas and adding in one more time a little bit more of some blue so that it's not so black in some of the areas. And then we're going to do our add-in of light blue. So when you're ready, you want to rinse your brushes. I also like to, with us using this so much blue, you might want to change your water for some fresh water at this point. So when you are ready, we're doing our final blue, which is going to be the light blue. After that, I'll say a reminder for us to get some fresh water. Because then we're going to start off, or continue, I should say, with the brown in the branches. All right, but right now you do want to rinse off your brush, and we're going to just mix some blue and white together. And you want to get sort of this light blue. And we're going to start to add that in very lightly. Kind of the tip of your brush. And you want it to kind of be sporadic. Kind of going for a snowy feel. And we're also going to go and add in some snowflakes as well. We're going to add them again on top too. This is a very light brushing. If you can see this, I'm really only adding just a little bit in order to blend with the background. Kind of almost like a smokiness So you shouldn't have a lot of paint on the edge or end of your brush. And we're going to go in the bottom right corner for most of this blue. You can hear me tapping. And if you look, I'm using my my flat brush. And again, if you don't like something, if it's too light, go back to your other colors and you can, add those to your mix. So I'm going to go in kind of each of the four corners, but not right in the corner with this color. And what I'm doing is I'm pressing my brush against the canvas and getting that blended look. And then just, take a look and see if you like, you like it so far. And when you're ready, let's go and refresh our water. I'll be right back. And also at this point, you want to wash out your brushes. And we are going to be using our round brush as we start to dot on some of the snow. And we will be doing more of it once we finish the painting. But for now, we want to dip the point after drying off your brush. Let me just clean mine out just a little more. And we're going to dip the point of it in white paint. And we're going to start very gently adding some snow. And so what we're going to do is when you do it like this, you also want to do snow that is very light. So barely touching, kind of barely touching your canvas here. You can go around a little bit, kind of to make a circle. You can also do ones that are close together and they're sort of kind of double or, more than one. And then as it starts to get your brush, as it starts to get, you know, light with paint, you still want to add the snow because you want it to look like it's sort of in the, in the background. And we're going to be adding much thicker ones as well. So you can do something like this and start to kind of dot around. Also pressing your brush instead of dotting it with holding it upright, you can also kind of press into your canvas so that you kind of get a little bit more of a shape of snow. And that's going to be our first layer of snow. So our next layer is now going to be using our brown for the twigs. So when you're ready, you want to rinse your brush again. And we're going to get into our brown. To kind of mix up my brown here. It got a little bit, it's kind of sat for a little while. And it kind of separated. So after rinsing your brush, like I mentioned, you want to get into your brown. And we're going to first make a dark brown with this. So same as we made a dark blue, we are going to add black to it. And you're going to get a very dark brown like this. I'm going to add more here. You want to make sure you mix up enough. And this is the first color we're going to paint our branches. Then what we'll do is we will mix up, we'll add in brown, and then we'll add brown and white together. So we make a dark color, a medium, and a light color. So this is dark brown, and I'm using my round brush, the detail brush. And we're going to start, and it's going to look black to you on Zoom. This is a dark brown. And so now is where we want to go gently, and you can make like knobby areas. Meaning, there's always bumps on branches. So right now is where you want to kind of define your shape or shapes. And we can do it a little more even when we start to add the lighter colors. I'm going to add some light to this while I'm doing it so that you can kind of see, even though it looks really dark on Zoom. This is a very dark brown. And then we're going to add, like I mentioned, the other colors. And at this stage, so this is where we're also going to be adding some offshoot branches of our own. So we didn't draw every single branch. We drew the main ones, but you can add more branches to this if you like. I will show you, obviously how I've done it was, only including a few branches, but you can add little offshoots as well to fill up your canvas. And here is where you want to, again, take your time. So we are painting with very dark brown right now. Oh, looks like we have another Carol joining. And again, you're just going to take your time. I like to go back in and again, make some knobby areas. But first, I paint, a little bit of a straightish line with some bumps. Hi, Carol. Thanks for joining us. This is being recorded, so you will get the recording at some point this week when I send it out to Chrissy, the librarian. But welcome. So we are painting with a dark brown our first layer of the twigs. We're making sure to take our time. When you rush, they get thicker, and it's okay if you want to have some thicker branches, that's okay too. Add a little water here. But we're going to start to lighten these up shortly by adding just regular brown. And basically, the way the twigs are, we have usually the darker part is underneath, and the light is usually on top of the lightest part of the twig is usually on top, being that, there's usually moonlight, sunlight. It's not always the case depending on which way the light is, but in our painting, we're going to imagine that the bottom part of each twig is the darker part of it. And so what we do is we go dark, medium, light in that order. And so the darkest, that dark brown, is going to be on your bottom part of the twig. Then we're going to hit it with a light brown. And I know it's a really tiny space in order to do that in. We're just going to take our time. I'm going back right now and just darkening up a little bit of my branch here. So I don't know if you can see it already, but I'm going to go in a lot closer at this point. You can see that my dark brown is on the bottom. So I'm just going back now and kind of filling in some white spots of the canvas. This is also where, you can add some kind of little lumps. We're also going to be doing that up top as well. We're just taking our time. Okay, that's one branch. Here's the other one. So again, and I'm going to show this up close. So you see the darker brown is on the bottom. A little bit of a lighter brown, but we're going to add in just regular brown afterward. And then finally, some brown mixed with white. I decided to do this painting so small so that we could get a lot of detail in. I've been doing that quite a bit for my programs with the painting ones because I feel like it's really fun to get the detail in, and I've had other people email me and say that they've enjoyed being able to get to that detail. So I'm hoping that you are enjoying it this evening as well. Just going over some of these. Okay. And when you are ready, and you may find, before I finish that statement, you may find that you have to go back at this point and paint in some of your background, touch up some of your background, and that's okay. We can do that now before we start with the greenery. It's best to do it now. So I'm going to add a little bit of some of that blue. I have a few spots on mine that I'd like to touch up. But our next color blue, if you don't have anything to touch up, is going to be brown. But I'm just going to add just a few spots in my background here where I don't want to go too thick with my branch. So instead, I'm going to do it with the background. Just a few spots there. Okay. So next we want to add in our brown, just our regular brown. And so we're going to add that on most of our branch. As you can see, I'm adding that now. Mostly to the top part of the branch, but also kind of in the middle, because we're also going to be adding some light brown, very light brown. And here again, if you remember, if you wanted to add, like I'm going to add maybe a little twig here. It's a little lighter. So again, this lighter brown is going towards the top. Don't be afraid to add it, a little bit into the middle of your branch as well. And this is where you can start to make, some bumps. By moving your brush in kind of a wiggly fashion. You can also dot on the color if you are, if you find that your branch is getting too thick, you can just take your brush and act like you're kind of dotting on the color very gingerly. And don't be afraid that, you might have to go back and go back into your black and make it a little darker again on the underside. That's okay. A little brown here. And also when you're ready, you're going to mix your white in with your brown. And you're going to get kind of a golden brown. Like this. And that you're going to add kind of on top. And again, very gingerly. You do want it to blend a bit because this isn't snow. This is just kind of the lighter color. So you may have to go back and add a little more brown. It might be a little bit too light. I don't like mine as light, but it's okay if it's, if you want it a bit lighter. And again, it doesn't have to be completely on top. Like I said, sitting on top, it can be, a little bit mixed into the other brown, because we are going to be adding snow on top. All right, so now I'm going to add in, and here again, you can add one more brown in by just making it slightly darker, but it still remains a little bit lighter because we have white in it. And I'm going to add in more brown. I don't want it that light. There we go. Kind of another layer of brown here. I didn't want it so light. And here is where, like I mentioned, remember I mentioned those bumps. You would just make it a little bit wavy with kind of some bumps sticking out. Usually they have a little bit of black, on the underside of them. And they're looking like branches. I hope yours do too. We're getting into the final parts of our painting here. When you are ready, we're going to add, rinse that off, and we're going to start adding our greenery, which, we're going to operate on the same idea. We have our base color and then a medium, sort of a darker color, and then a lighter color. So we're going to start off first this time with our dark green. And so basically taking our green and adding a little bit of black in. And then what we do is we paint in the medium and the light colors, and it looks very realistic. It looks gradual, right? The darker color is usually, again, at the base of our leaves. So what I'm talking about now is our leaves, our greenery. So I'm just kind of making sure I mix up enough for those. And depending on how you feel with your brush, you can use both brushes. I like to start off using my flat brush. And basically using it on the side. So here again, on Zoom, this might look like it's black, but this is a very dark green. Let me mix that a little more. So it's kind of like a forest green, I would say, right? And so what we're going to do with our branches, or I'm sorry, our greenery, is we're going to hold our paintbrush like this, and then we're going to push upward. So here again, you might find that you're better with your smaller brush or your detail brush, and that is just fine. You want to make sure to kind of start on top of your, your greenery so that it looks like it's kind of coming out of it. You're really going to be able to see this more once I do add the lighter green on it. And so we have it come from both sides of the twigs. And just take your time. You might be able to peep some greenery on mine, but you're really going to be able to see more of it on Zoom once I start adding in the lighter parts. And you want to kind of get bushy towards the edge as it points. But again, I'm going to start to add in, and I think I'm going to switch brushes. I was first using my flat brush. But I'm going to go in and use my detail brush. And I'm going to go in with my green. And I'm going to lighten it up just a little bit with some white. And then I'm going to go in. So you should be able to see that now. And I'm going to make sure that you can still see the dark green at the edge or the start of where that greenery came from. Oh, Rosetta, I lost you. I'm so glad you were able to join again.
Yes, sorry, I don't know what I did.
No, that's okay. Sometimes we lose connection. So now going in and just very carefully adding the lighter green. The other thing is if your brush is not coming to a point or it's starting to get thicker, a trick to do to make it keep its point is to push it against your palette, roll it and pull it back and the point is going to happen. And then you can use that. The other thing is you can also wet your brush a little bit with some water. You do want to make sure to have your color on there. But that'll also keep the flow of the paint a little better. See, and it also has it come out a little bit finer. Like that. You're going to sweep it across. Kind of in a quick motion there. A little more water, a little more white. And you can start to get a little lighter too, even though we're going to start adding white to it. Some of these branches. I'm switching around now to the other side. All right, it's getting green. You can go back and on the tips of each of your branches, each of your greenery, you can go back still and, make it a little lighter and it'll look even more realistic. So if you look, like my greenery has, some dark green to it, but then it also has some lighter green to it. And that's by kind of going back in and sort of adding some of those colors. And here again, just take your time. And you're going to have overlap as well, which is how it really should be and how it really is when you see evergreen branches. add some more over here. And you can make your greenery as big as you want. And I'm going to go back in now with a little more lighter green, really light. We're going to then start adding on our snow. So I like to go on the tips of each greenery using the whitish green. So this is the lightest part before we add on the snow. Now this can also kind of look like there's some snow already on the tips, which is nice, but we're going to start adding some clumps on the branches. That makes some of this greenery a little bit longer. Okay. Now, if you're ready, this is where we start to add lumps of white. So here again, I like to do it with both brushes. I'm going to start to do it with my flat brush, turning it to the side. And you're going to start adding snow on top of your branch. And the snow will pile up in the corners, depending, so you can kind of add a little more there. And this is where you can also start to add it on the tips of your evergreen. And what I'm doing is I'm kind of dotting it on. Making sure that when it clumps, it's not the same. There might be more in one section. And I find I really like to do it with my flat brush. But you might feel, dotting it on with your other brush is easier, and that's okay. I do a combination of both because we're going to go back and, add some more sort of snow areas. But I also kind of do that with my flat brush as well. And so now I'm just going in there and adding some really thick areas of snow on the ends of each branch, each evergreen, and then also um, on the branches themselves. I think this is the fun part. I love adding the snow. Mm. And then here again, I do like to go back with my detail brush, and I'm going to start adding some more dots of snow on top of the evergreens. Sometimes it gets clumpy. It's fun to do that, depending on how snowy you want it. I like to sometimes do like a cluster. You can even make a snowflake if you like. Make some little dots here. I'm going to make kind of a little, almost kind of like a little snowflake, suggestion of a snowflake right there. Make one right here. And then take a look and see if you want to do anything else to it. But I'm really excited to see what these look like. So I'm going to remove my spotlight. I'll give you guys another minute, and then a minute or two, and then I want to see what these look like. I'm going to go rinse out my brushes. I am so curious to see what these look like. So I'm going to stop the recording and then I'd like to invite you to, um, you can unmute and also, um, if you're able to show your painting, would love to see it. So I'm going to stop the recording first.